You don't deserve to be called an Anderson. My father's voice boomed across the dining room, silencing the usual chatter of our monthly family gathering. I sat there, fork suspended midair, watching the vein in his temple throb as he continued his tirade. My name is Sophia, and at 32, I was about to prove my father right, but not in the way he expected. The outburst had started innocently enough. Aunt Margaret had been praising my recent humanitarian work in rural communities, something my father had always dismissed as wasteful charity. When she mentioned how proud she was that an Anderson was finally doing meaningful work, he snapped. Meaningful? He scoffed, his face reddening. The Andersons built this town through business and politics, not by playing Mother Teresa to freeloaders. My mother nervously adjusted her pearls, a habit she developed over 30 years of managing my father's temper. My younger brother James stared at his plate, while his wife squeezed his hand under the table. I set my fork down carefully, years of practice helping me maintain my composure. Is that what you really think, Dad? You've always been different, he spat, gesturing wildly. Always going against our values, our traditions. Your brother understood what it means to be an Anderson. But you? You're just, he paused, searching for the right words to wound. You're just not worthy of this name. The room held its breath. In any other family, this might have been the moment for tears or dramatic exits. But I've been waiting for this moment for 6 months, ever since I discovered the truth in Grandmother Eleanor's old diary. I smiled, reaching for my bag. You know what, Dad? You're absolutely right. My calm response caught him off guard. The familiar redness in his face faltered slightly. I'm not worthy of the Anderson name, I continued, pulling out a sealed envelope, because I'm not actually an Anderson. The silence in the room deepened. My mother's face went pale, her fingers frozen mid-pearl adjustment. What are you talking about? My father demanded, but there was a note of uncertainty in his voice that I'd never heard before. I opened the envelope slowly, deliberately. Remember last spring when Grandmother Eleanor passed away, and I helped clean out her attic? I found her diaries, and Dad, she had quite a story to tell about the summer of 1990. My mother's water glass slipped from her hand, splashing across the imported tablecloth. Nobody moved to clean it up. That's enough. My father stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. I won't listen to this nonsense. The DNA test results in this envelope say otherwise, I replied, my voice steady. Would you like to tell everyone about Thomas Bennett, or should I? The name hit my father like a physical blow. He staggered slightly, gripping the edge of the table. My mother's face had gone from pale to ashen. Who's Thomas Bennett? James asked, looking between our parents in confusion. Mom's first love, I answered, meeting my mother's wide-eyed stare. The man she was still seeing 3 months into her marriage with Dad. The man who, according to Grandmother Eleanor's diary, is actually my father. The dining room erupted into chaos. Aunt Margaret gasped dramatically. Uncle Peter started quoting Bible verses about sin and redemption, and James just sat there, mouth open, trying to process that his perfect family wasn't so perfect after all. But I wasn't done. I placed the envelope on the table, sliding it toward my father. So you see, Dad, when you say I don't deserve the Anderson name, you're absolutely right. I never had it to begin with. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked loudly, marking each second of the stunning silence that followed. My father stood frozen, staring at the envelope like it might burst into flames. The envelope sat untouched on the table, a white rectangle that had just shattered our family's perfect facade. My father's hands trembled as he finally reached for it, his fingers fumbling with the seal. This is impossible, he muttered, pulling out the papers. You're lying. You've always been a troublemaker, always trying to destroy our family's reputation. I watched him scan the DNA results, his face growing paler with each line. The test was clear. I shared no genetic markers with the Anderson bloodline. Instead, there was a 99.9% match with Thomas Bennett's family. Where did you get this? He demanded, his voice hoarse. After finding Grandmother's diary, I reached out to Thomas's daughter, my half-sister, through social media. She agreed to a DNA test. Turns out we look remarkably alike. Aunt Margaret, never one to stay quiet during family drama, leaned forward. Eleanor knew about this, all these years. I pulled out the worn leather diary from my bag. She knew everything. She tried to convince Mom to tell the truth, but I glanced at my mother, who sat rigid in her chair, Some people prefer comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. Sarah, my father turned to my mother, his voice dangerously low. Is this true? For the first time in my life, I saw my mother look her husband in the eye without flinching. Thomas was kind, she said softly. He was gentle and understanding. Everything you weren't. James pushed back from the table. I can't believe this. All those years you preached about family loyalty, about upholding the Anderson name, and it was all based on a lie. Your father gave me security, my mother continued, as if James hadn't spoken. The Andersons had position, respect. I did what I had to do. What you had to do? I echoed. You let me grow up feeling like an outsider in my own family. Every time Dad criticized me for not being a true Anderson, you stayed silent. You knew why I was different, why I never fit in with their grand plans and expectations. Uncle Peter, who had finally run out of biblical quotes, cleared his throat. Perhaps we should all take a moment to pray. Oh, shut up, Peter, Aunt Margaret snapped. This isn't something you can pray away. My father suddenly slammed his fist on the table, making the china rattle. None of this leaves this room, he ordered, looking around at the family. The Anderson name still means something in this town, and I won't have it tarnished by what, Dad? I interrupted, emphasizing the word. By the truth? By your wife's infidelity? Or by the fact that you've spent 32 years pretending to be something you're not? He turned on me, his face contorted with rage. You ungrateful. No, I cut him off again, standing up. You don't get to call me ungrateful. You don't get to call me anything anymore. I'm not your daughter, remember. I'm not worthy of your precious name. The room fell silent again as I gathered my things. James reached for my hand as I passed. But I gently pulled away. This wasn't his burden to bear. I've already contacted Thomas, I announced, pausing at the dining room door. He's been waiting 32 years to meet his daughter. Turns out I'm not the only one in the family who dedicated their life to helping others. He's a doctor who spent his career working in underserved communities. My mother made a small, choked sound. So you were right all along, I continued, looking directly at my father. I'm not an Anderson. I never was. And for the first time in my life, I'm thankful for that. The grandfather clock chimed 7 times, marking the end of another perfectly planned Anderson family dinner. But this time, there would be no polite goodbyes, no promises to meet again next month. This time, the truth had finally broken through decades of carefully maintained appearances. As I walked to my car, I heard the muffled sound of shouting from inside the house. My father's voice, once so intimidating, now seemed small and desperate. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd memorized but never called. Hello, a warm voice answered. Thomas, it's Sophia. I told them everything. There was a pause, then, are you okay? I looked back at the house where I'd grown up feeling like I never quite belonged. Yes, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. I think I finally am. 6 months after that explosive family dinner, I stood in front of a small cafe in Portland, Oregon, my heart racing. Through the window, I could see Thomas Bennett, my real father, waiting at a corner table. He was exactly as his photos showed, tall with gentle eyes and silver-streaked dark hair that matched my own. The aftermath of my revelation had been exactly what you'd expect. My father, Robert Anderson, had tried to silence the truth with money, threatening to cut off anyone who dared speak about it. But the Anderson family's perfect image had already cracked beyond repair. James called me the day after the dinner. I always wondered why Dad was harder on you, he said. Why nothing you did was ever good enough. I should have stood up for you more. It wasn't your battle. I told him. You didn't know. Still, he paused. You're still my sister, Sophia. DNA doesn't change that. His words meant more than any Anderson inheritance ever could. My mother tried to contact me multiple times, leaving voicemails filled with explanations and excuses. You have to understand, she pleaded. I was young, trapped in a loveless marriage. Thomas was the only person who saw me as more than an Anderson wife. I didn't respond. Understanding her choices didn't erase 32 years of silent complicity. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the cafe door. Thomas looked up, and his face broke into a warm smile that mirrored my own. We have the same dimples. Sophia. He stood hesitating briefly before opening his arms. I stepped into his embrace, and it felt like coming home. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. Your grandmother, Eleanor, she told me Sarah had chosen Robert, that it would be better for everyone if I stayed away. We sat down, both of us trying to contain years of pent-up emotions. I followed your work, he said, pulling out a folder. Every newspaper article about your humanitarian projects, every mention of your community outreach programs. I kept them all. My vision blurred as I looked through the clippings. All those years I thought no one saw value in my choices, some have been silently cheering me on. Your sister, Emma, she wants to meet you too. Thomas continued. She's a social worker in Seattle. When you're ready, of course. I smiled through my tears. I'd like that. Our conversation flowed easily, filling in 32 years of missed moments. I learned that his gentle nature and passion for helping others hadn't just skipped a generation. They were core Bennett family traits. The Andersons, Thomas said carefully, they value power, influence, status. But true worth isn't in a name, Sophia. It's in how you touch other lives. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Robert Anderson. The family name will be ruined if this gets out. Name your price to keep quiet. I showed it to Thomas, who shook his head sadly, still trying to control the narrative. He doesn't understand, I replied, deleting the message. You can't buy truth. Or family. Thomas reached across the table, squeezing my hand. No, you can't. But you can build it, nurture it, choose it. Later that evening, I sat in my hotel room, looking through old photos with new eyes. I sent one to James, us as kids, pulling silly faces at some formal Anderson event. Still siblings by choice, I wrote. Then I opened my laptop and began typing. Dear Mr. Anderson, you were right. I'm not worthy of your name. I'm worthy of so much more. I'm worthy of truth, of genuine love, of a family that values character over appearances. I'm worthy of the Bennett name. I hit send without hesitation. For the first time in my life, I felt complete, understood, accepted. Not because of a name or status, but because I finally knew who I really was. My phone lit up with a message from Emma, my sister. Family dinner at Dad's next Sunday. Your place is already set. I smiled, feeling the last pieces of my life falling into place. Robert Anderson had been right. I didn't deserve his name. I deserved my own truth, my own path, my own family. And finally, after 32 years, I have found it. Sometimes the families we choose are more real than the ones we're born into. Sometimes the truth, no matter how late it comes, sets us free in ways we never expected. And sometimes proving someone right about who you're not helps you discover who you truly are.